Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Needs More Jazzhands viewing party. This week we are going to be watching Xena Warrior Princess, episode 12 of season 3, The Bittersweet. So this show actually had 2 musical episodes, but we're going to be starting off with the first one here. What do you need to know to understand what's going on? So we have Xena. She used to be evil, did a lot of really bad things. This show is her trying to make up for that and save a bunch of people. Then we have Gabrielle. She thought too much for a woman in her village, so she ran away to adventure with Xena. She became an Amazonian princess, a bit by chance, is pretty good at using a staff, and is generally speaking kind of the heart and soul of the show. Xena's not evil anymore, but she's certainly not in touch with her emotions. So those are our 2 main characters. What do you need to know to get into this episode? Well, this episode is actually a culmination of a pretty long arc that then, kind of pops up again later, so I'm not going to say it's the end of it, but it's certainly an important plot point here. So, long story short, Xena had a son 10 years ago. She gave him to a centaur to be raised, and although she's seen him a couple of times, generally speaking, she tries to leave him alone so that he doesn't get caught up in the insanity of being known as Xena's son. So she loves him, but she loves him from afar. Gabrielle has kind of the big plot that's relevant here. So when Xena decided that she just had to fight Caesar, Gabrielle gets taken by a cult and is tricked into killing somebody so that her blood purity is broken. And then she gets kind of raped by fire and impregnated with what's essentially the Antichrist. She gives birth to the Antichrist. We're going to call her Hope because that's what the show calls her, but let's be honest, it's the Antichrist. Gives birth to her, and everybody is pretty well convinced after the baby murders somebody a couple hours after being born, that she's pretty much evil and needs to be killed. Xena is very gung-ho at this point. Let's kill the baby. Gabrielle, of course, is going, no, that's my baby. We're not going to kill my baby. My baby could be good. So she runs away. But after realizing that she's not going to be able to stop Xena, she pretends that she killed the baby. Actually, she pulled a Moses, put the baby in a basket, floated her down the river. Jump forward about 8 episodes or so, and we see that the baby, which grew up very, very quickly, is roughly 10 or 11 now, and she is just about as evil as we all expected she was going to be. There is no moral ambiguity here whatsoever. She's evil. She wants to bring about more evil. End of story. So what she does is she tricks her mom. She's like, oh, I'm just a poor kid, and my mom abandoned me. Wah. Gabrielle believes her, of course, and is like, oh, I'll protect you. We'll put you in with Xena's son so that you both can be safe. And, of course, as you might have seen coming, Gabrielle's daughter murders Xena's son. And now they're not so good of friends, because this totally could have been prevented if, Gabrielle had just killed Hope, like Xena said. That being said, perfectly reasonable for a mom of a newborn baby to be like, I'm not going to kill my child. Totally get it. At the end of the episode, of course, Gabrielle kills her child. But at this point, she is proven evil, and so it's perfectly fine. Gabrielle has, some trauma from having to murder her own child, and Xena has a lot of trauma from her own child being killed. So they're both very, very upset. They saw horrible things. They had to do horrible things. But long story short, both kids are dead. Both mothers are very, very upset, and the rift between them cannot be healed. So, of course, we turn to the musical episode where, of course, the rift will be healed very quickly. And that's kind of it. So we're going to go ahead and get started on it. Again, Season 3, Episode 12, The Bittersweet. Okay. The first 10 minutes of this episode does a lot. Okay, so we see Xena and Gabrielle have split ways. Xena is kind of just exiling herself, being sad. And Gabrielle has gone into... she's back with the Amazonians, or the Amazon, sorry. And she goes through a purification ritual, which is really just self-torture. While they're in their, own isolation periods, Xena is visited by Ares, or at least a vision of him, that is like, hey, remember how I keep telling you need to be evil again? This is proof. You tried to be good, and your son's dead, so be evil and punish the one who's responsible. And Gabrielle is, going through her own self-inflicted torture, when a vision of Callisto, who is another person who was partially responsible for the deaths of both of their children, also is a mother who saw, or a woman who saw her entire family be slaughtered. So we've got some paralleling tracks there. She shows up to Gabrielle and kind of prompts her, hey, you're feeling guilt. What you should be feeling is really, really mad. Be mad at Xena. And so they both kind of realize, yes, you're right. We hate each other. And so Xena, just goes to the Amazon village and wraps her whip around Gabrielle's ankles and then drags her through flames into, carts and things through like a lake or a river over a massive terrain. And Gabrielle's somehow not dead by that. But she is not doing well. So Xena's like, I'll just finish her off. I'll lift her above my head and I'll chuck her off a cliff. Because that's, what you do to your best friend after they're kind of responsible for murdering your son. It's a long, complicated kind of thing. But then, of course, Gabrielle wakes up, hits Xena, and decides, you know what? No, you don't get to be the one who's mad here. I'm mad here. Because if you hadn't been so obsessed with taking out Caesar, I never would have been put in a position to essentially be a sacrifice to a evil cult that then produced a child. So this is all your fault. And so she charges at her, and they both go flying off a cliff into mystical waters, and that is how we get into our musical. Which is fine. We definitely see that both are not doing well, and that both kind of blame each other for it, which is, all that needs to be set up, but I kind of wish that there had been longer there. Have a couple episodes where they're not together, where we see what they're like without each other, and we see, the opportunities for that hate to potentially grow when they're not in each other's company. I think that the fact that this episode is meant to put them back together would have been more successful if we actually saw them apart. I mean, Gabrielle's been messed up kind of all season because of what happened to her when she was originally kind of sacrificed and impregnated, but for the most part, they've kind of been continuing to work together. So it's really not until the last episode where they split. So I'd like to see them split longer, but we got what we needed to see, and Xena dragging Gabrielle was really, really brutal. So let's see how you, in the next, 30 or so minutes, can completely come back from that. So this is really weird. There's a lot going on in this episode. Some of it I get, some of it I don't. Even some of what I get is very strange. But that's kind of the trademark of this show. Every now and then it just does things that are really bizarre and go too far in the direction of campy or weird. And this episode, I think, flirts with that a little bit. So far we've had the introduction to a Lucia song. So they're in Alucia, the land where you sing and rhyme your thoughts. And then we are in the middle of kind of this juxtaposition of Xena being greeted by all of these warriors for being, war-loving and potentially evil and very violent and strong and powerful. And then Gabrielle being in kind of a image of her village where they're all chanting, villagers love peace and happiness and joy and all of that, and of course you're the best of us. Really trying to push this dichotomy of Gabrielle is good and peace-loving, and Xena was evil, potentially, and violence-loving, and that the two of them together don't work, they don't make sense, and they break each other. They don't make each other the best that they could be. Gabrielle could be the height of all peace and good, but Xena's desire for war ruined that. Xena could be the most powerful person in the world, but Gabrielle's holding her back and hurt her son. So it's really this big thing about how, look at the two of you, you are complete dichotomies, and you're on the complete opposite sides of it. Which, of course, that's not how things work. Nothing is that black and white, and we're gonna quickly merge, kind of, I assume, into, oh wait, things are not this simple. Let's not pretend like if they had never met, they would have been these perfect icons. Life is messy, they are messy, and life being messy doesn't necessarily mean that they're wrong for each other, or that either of them is innately bad as a person. Okay, so after the two groups kind of rile these two up, war is good, we love war versus villagers love peace, the two seem at least to go head to head, and Xena very quickly just, murders Gabrielle. Like, just, you know what, we're not playing here. She's dead. She seems to feel kind of guilty pretty quickly, and then she kind of gets a bit of a devil and an angel on her shoulder moment, so Ares comes in and does a seductive, kind of uncomfortable tango with her, explaining, well, now that you murdered your best friend, you're evil, and you like killing things, and I'm evil, and I like killing things, so we'll be an amazing pair together, being evil and killing things, of course. And then we see Calypso kind of coming in, and she's kind of the representation of vengeance doesn't make you feel any better. And so she's, kind of mocking Xena. Well, now you killed your best friend. Does it make you feel better about your dead son? No. No, it doesn't, because you still feel awful, and the only thing that you can do is try to let this go. And after they kind of say their parts, we see Xena kind of break. She's not okay with this. She's not okay that she killed Gabrielle. She's trying to respond to it. And then, of course, Gabrielle appears, because she didn't kill the real Gabrielle, but Gabrielle now sees that Xena is willing to kill her, which is not a great way to try and move forward with your relationship. So, Gabrielle's response to that is what we're going to see next. So, after realizing that Xena was, willing to kill her, they get kind of transported to this echo chamber, where whenever they talk about the past, which is, of course what they're going to talk about, it gets so loud echoing that they can't hear each other speak. They can't communicate because the thoughts about the past and the things that make them angry are blocking them out from having any kind of real communication or from seeing what each other feels. They're really on the defensive here. Gabrielle is upset, as she has good right to be, because ever since she's known Xena controls things. Xena decides every single thing that they're going to do. And she's very upset about everything that she's been through this season. With, getting taken by the cult, with her child being taken away from her, with her child dying, with being blamed for all of this when it's not really her fault, or at least not all her fault. And then, of course, Xena is very upset because her child is dead, and in her mind it is Gabrielle's fault, and she makes the decisions because she has to, because nobody else is going to. And they're so focused on their defenses and the things they tell themselves that fuel their anger that they can't hear each other. I like the messaging here. I like the way that it's structured. But the special effects And the way that they do things on this show can sometimes lessen the impact. And there's, I'm sure, plenty of people that are going to disagree with me on that. They've got some really interesting messages going on. It takes more effort for me to find them than I think it should. I'm not saying there's anything complex or anything bad with complex storytelling or musicals or any of that. It seems like it's more work than makes sense for this kind of a plot. It also feels like they pushed a lot of things into one episode. So again, I feel like if we had had 2 or 3 episodes between, the death of both of their children, and by the way, both of them considered killing themselves or letting themselves die after that. So there's a lot going on there. If we'd had a couple of episodes to let them kind of fester in that and deal with it a little more, I think that this might be easier, but instead it's like, well, this happened a couple days ago. It's not really clear how long it's been, but we know that Gabrielle was in self-imposed torture for 3 days. It's been a little while. Now you guys are both mad enough to try and kill each other. Now you're gonna make up. And it feels a little rushed for me. And I feel like the oddity of the episode, which, to be fair, is just kind of characteristic of the show, I feel like it struggles to keep that balance between kind of fun, campy, mythy-ness, and the seriousness of what they're going through. So I wish that to some degree they could have been a little more serious, but I really like this echo chamber idea. It's got a lot of really interesting kind of thoughts in it. This is all very easy. I mean, I think that part of this is just time. I'm not saying all shows should be musicals for extended periods of time, but what I am saying is, if you're gonna do a musical to express the strongest emotions, and you go, well, there's strong emotions for a whole arc, so we're just gonna pump the whole arc into one episode, you're taking advantage of the form and sacrificing the story. I mean, they realize that what they're really fighting is not each other, but the hatred inside, because singing apparitions of themselves and the people in their lives tell them that hate consumes everything and that that's what's gonna win. They don't have to figure anything out. It tells them. And then as hate is about to destroy them, they're just like, love is the opposite of hate, so we love each other, we feel bad, bad things happened and we should have worked through it together, but instead we turned on each other, and we'll love each other and that'll fix it. And then, the hate creatures just disappear, and it's too fast. I feel like this is one of the long arcs of the show. I mean, so many episodes of the show, you can tune in to one episode and need nothing before. And, of the many, many episodes I've seen in the last several days, the only one that had a previously on is this one. It is very much based on the history of the show and the characters. There's so much building to this. So why weaken it? There's too much happening too literally, too quickly. I would much rather... I'm fine with this being what restores them. I would much rather have seen their hatred actually enacted over several episodes against each other, instead of essentially them imagining people stoking their anger, immediately acting on it, and then immediately recovering from it. If we had just... I mean, it's a long show. There's a lot of episodes of this. If we had just been devoted to showing them growing in this hatred, then I'd be more okay with it being resolved quickly, and I think that the musical form would be a really good way to do that. We can still have the echo chamber where they can't hear each other through their rage, they can't see each other's pain from their own. I'm fine with them realizing that hatred is the enemy, not each other. I'm fine with all of that. But because they tried to do everything in the one episode, it just... everything's weakened, everything feels rushed. It's easy for them. I don't think it should be this easy. I don't know. I expand things. Don't push all of your emotion in an arc into one episode. Make it the height of the emotion of the arc. Have an arc. Instead, we have one episode dealing with a lot. And I would much rather see that spread out so that the musical can really do restorative power, can really, have the echo room where they're trying to talk. They're trying to talk, and when we're talking, we're going from our thinking brain. When we sing in a musical, we're going from our feeling, from our heart. If we had seen when they're talking to each other, it's accusations, it's anger, and it's the echo chamber, but then we finally see them burst into song, and this is where they can truly kind of say what they think, what they feel, what they need, and that's how we can start repairing it. It's a perfect setup for a musical episode. But they're not really playing to it as much as I think they need to. They're not taking advantage of the form as much as could be, because they did all of these production numbers. I mean, frankly, we didn't really need anybody. Maybe you could have people thrown in there as extras or ensemble, but they seemed so devoted to let's do kind of these big production number ensemble numbers. No. Give me an episode where after, the heartbreak, Gabrielle does go home, and she sees what her life could have been if she had stayed there. Have, Xena out on her own, maybe actually bring Ares in, because that's not like something that the show wouldn't do. Have her take it out on somebody. Have her see people who are hurting children and just go beyond what is hero level to, really vigilante vengeance level. I mean, that's the whole shtick here. Let's build that in. We don't need the songs, we love war and villagers love peace. We don't need that. Give me an episode or 2 episodes where we see them really go back to who they used to be and try and figure out if it still fits, and try and figure out if it's their comfort zone, how they're going to respond to it, how they can handle things. I mean, really show me them grappling with the grief, with the anger, with who they used to be, with what they think being with each other has meant. Show me that, and then give me the musical where we can break through it all. Either have the musical be where, we had been saying everything's fine and now we're admitting it's not, or have it be nothing is fine and this is how we come together. But don't be like, the musical stokes their anger, the musical stokes their guilt, the musical stokes them coming back together. Everything's fine now. Like, it's rushed, it's a waste of an episode of a really, really good potential to deal with a lot of really complicated emotions. I think that the musical episode is exactly the form they needed for that. But not this way. I don't know. There's so much about the way that this episode was constructed and how much was in it that I just don't think it had the ability to do everything it needed to. Okay. So as they're shown a way out, that's presumably available to them if they give up, they're hurt and they're honest with each other and da-da-da. Gabrielle gets through it, but Xena is blocked off. It's like acid to her. And it's revealed that she lied to Gabrielle about something really important. Further cementing, Xena is a massive hypocrite, and she is so convinced that everything she does is right. She will never apologize. She will never show emotion. What she says goes, and that's that. And then, of course, we get the breakdown of that, which was actually easily the best part of this episode, which is a song that I can only assume is called Forgive Me. Forgive me, I'm sorry, I've done wrong. Just over and over, Xena working through, I am at fault here somewhat. I have lied to you. I have not cared really what you think, because in my opinion, I know best all the time in all situations. And that's maybe not true. And then we see, she sees an image of Solon, her son, and she gets to apologize to him, because a lot of her anger isn't just at Gabrielle for the fact that her son died, but is also at herself, because she never even told him that she was his mother. She left him with the centaurs, she took care of him when she could, but she wasn't around. She wasn't a mother to him. And she feels a lot of guilt at the fact that she was never the mother that he deserved, at least within her own eyes. So she apologizes to him as well, and really opens up to, sometimes she's at fault. She needs to be honest with her love, all of that. She stretches out her arm, Gabrielle stretches out hers, and only hand in hand can they both get through the water. It's great. Water brings them in, water brings them mostly out. She still has the time to really tell her son, essentially, I love you, I'm your mother, I'm sorry, before they get brought back into the real world. I like that this episode is basically the first time ever that we have seen Xena get really vulnerable. I mean, Xena got hurt last episode. She got viciously hurt, but she responded to it with anger and with shutting herself off. And this is her opening up, letting down some of those walls and being honest about how she feels. That's golden. That very well may save the episode for me. That song, that moment is exactly what was needed. My downside to that is we really don't get any sign that Gabrielle has any right to mourn her child. I mean, her child that was, forced on her, she named her Hope. She was the only good thing that Gabrielle could possibly think of. The only hope that everything was going to be okay. Xena immediately tried to kill her. I mean, not like from birth, but within a couple of hours. Then she was forced to be away from her daughter, and then she ended up having to kill her daughter. And I get it. Her daughter is presented as pure evil. We don't need to mourn the evil. But Gabrielle is still a mother who not only lost her child, but had to kill her child. And there is so much going on there that we don't really get to see. All we get is Gabrielle blaming Xena for being captured by the cult so that the child was even born. But Gabrielle loved this child. That was very, very well established. And the fact that they're not dealing with any of that kind of bugs me. But anyway, I've got like a minute and a half left. So let me see if there's anything else that I want to comment on. And then I will wrap this up. Okay, so basically so essentially the end of the episode, they get back out of Elusia. We're home, at last. They look into each other's eyes. It's clear that each other is their home, not, the fact that they're not in Elusia anymore. And they love each other once again, which is, sweet and great and sets up what's going to happen with them later, but, it was all very easy. And then they, laugh and just, hug each other and collapse into the waves. And that was a little too joyful to me. They still have a lot of sorrow. They still have a lot to work through. I feel like the musical episode should be a start to fixing it. A good gesture that essentially says, we're going to go through this together. But it ended a little too happy for me, given, the whole thing was prompted by both of their children being dead. So there's stuff going on there. So let me summarize. Weird episode. I feel like the entire first half kind of didn't need to happen. It was just to show off the other actors and singers that they have in the cast. A lot of stuff that I think would be a lot better done if they had just cut the first half, make that its own episode. It doesn't need to be a musical. Just show Xena and Gabrielle really struggling with their grief, with their anger, with their guilt. Show them going back to who they used to be, trying to figure out if that's who they are anymore. Even do them running into each other again and Xena pretty brutally trying to murder Gabrielle. And end the episode before this with them going into the water. It's a good cliffhanger. It sets up, people need to watch the next episode. And then really spend that episode with they're angry. They're not listening to each other. They are so filled with their own emotions and their own pain that they can't even see each other. I mean, really, really dive into that. Give me more of Xena is not letting anybody in. She's using anger to cover up pain, and then really breaking that down in her, I'm sorry, forgive me, I was wrong, I'm hurting, I don't know what to do. That was the best part of the episode. Really take that last half, stretch it out, really dive deep there. And I think this would have been great. But instead, we have the first half, which is bad special effects, and weirdness. I mean, I appreciate the tarot references. I get what they're going for there. It was very weird. There was an odd amount of nudity involved in all of it. I feel like there were many ways that we could have just really focused in on Gabrielle and Xena and grief. And I think that would have made for a better episode. As for the music, I didn't care for it. Most of the songs just felt kind of unnecessary. A lot of the music seemed really, really familiar, meaning they seemed a lot like a lot of other musicals and Disney and similar things, which to me, I mean, if you're gonna make original songs, make them really original, really kind of dive into that. I kind of enjoyed the hate song. It had a nice kind of good vibe. Again, I love Xena's song where she finally opens up about her emotions. I don't think that Gabrielle really had a song where she could be honest about her emotions. I like the echo chamber theme. Like, there were some good parts here. I really don't feel like it was executed as well as it could have been. Split it into 2 episodes, really dig into their grief. Don't try to showboat all of your actors. Just focus on these 2. That's all you need. And I think that it would have been a lot better. That being said, is it bad? No. It needed to kind of bring the 2 of them together to set up the rest of the show, to set up the future stuff with Hope, because of course the Antichrist child must be resurrected. Otherwise, what point would there be? But there's a lot there that I wish we had had the chance to go deeper on. It felt like they had a lot of really good ideas and they kind of stayed shallow on the surface. So that's kind of my perspective on that. So finishing up, let's see. Next week we are going to have the podcast released. So I'll really break down kind of the specific detail work of what I think worked, what I think didn't, things like that. Match it up against all of the others. And then in 2 weeks, I'll be posting another video for the first of our major musical episodes, which has nothing to do with magic. Nothing, no spells were cast, no foreign lands they went into, no, superpowers, just murder. We're going to be turning to Riverdale, and we will be looking at their first musical episode, which was the best of them. So Carrie the musical within Riverdale, and really dig into how the musical episode works when there isn't magic, when it's not original scores, when they're just kind of performing a musical and seeing how they kind of match up into it. So that's what's coming up next. I hope to see you all then. Bye.